Hello and welcome to today's episode of Talking to Introverts. And today, myself, Denise Oliver, and my co-host, Sami Blackford, thought that we would have a chat with you about the fears that an introvert woman in business has. Now, some of these might resonate with you and others may not, because we all develop our fears individually and uniquely. So we are going to speak in more general terms, plus some of our experiences as well, because, they're varied, wide-reaching. So, Sami, let's see what we can talk to our lovely listeners about fear and being an introvert in business today. What's one of
Hello.
your fears?
Hello.
Hello.
So I think as you were speaking then, I was like, oh, well, let's just think, what are my fears or what have been my fears in business? And I think the first one that just like popped right into my mind was being seen, being, what's the word, like getting out there, and being the celebrity of your business. Whereas, I for one like to be in the background doing the stuff that I enjoy doing. Like I don't need to be the face, being like having my face plastered all over social media and all of that. And I don't think it's a fear from a shyness point of view, which at one point it would have been. I think it's more of I much prefer doing the work rather than being the star of the show.
Yeah, being in the spotlight.
Mm,
But how was that? I can see it. I can understand how with Freya Luna, that Freya Luna was the star of the show, the products were the star of the show.
mm.
But how is it working for you now?
Yeah, yeah. With my skincare business, I always used to say like I used to hide behind the products because they were the thing that mattered. I didn't, it didn't matter who I was really. I mean, obviously it does. People buy from people, all of that kind of stuff. And now it's very different because I'm what do they call, like a personal brand type business where I am a service based business. It's me that people deal with, like, when I'm working with clients. It is different. And there is a lot more of expectation, I suppose, around, especially in the social media, arena, that I should be on social media and like, I need to show my face more and all of this kind of stuff, which, you know, it's okay. I don't mind doing that. And also, again, I don't think that's what matters. So basically, I think that what we're getting to here is like, I don't think I matter.
Oh, well,
but
there's an interesting insight.
which might come across as like, low self-worth and all of that kind of stuff. But really, I think what I mean by that is like, it's about the work. It's not about me. And again, I can see both sides of the argument there because, people want to know what it's going to be like to work with me and, get to feel for who I am and all of that kind of stuff. And again, like I said, people buy from people, you need to build that know, like, trust. And also, I feel there are ways of doing that without pimping myself on social media.
Yeah. Do you ever look at social media and immediately recognize someone who's an introvert? I think I do. I watch them and they're much quieter. They're less like exuberant
Mm.
and almost look like a rabbit in headlights. Like I know I should be pointing in the air and I will make things appear eventually, but I'm really not enjoying this. They're not naturally drawn to revealing themselves.
Mm. Yeah, and I think there are introverts I know of who, or certainly more introverted people that I know of who do, social media where they, go, I don't know if they go live or if they pre-record, but, they have their face, they're talking to camera, they have their video content on social media. So it's not that, we can't do that. And if that's something that you want to do, not that you feel you should do, but if it's something that you want to do, then I would always say, like, find a way that to do it that works for you. So whether it's, pre-recording rather than going live, because like I've got to this point, like I've got to the point in life, I'm 40 now, I've got to the age where I'm just like, if it doesn't work for me, just, I can't be bothered. Life is too short to be trying to fit into somebody else's mold.
Yeah. But at the same time, don't you think that there does need to be a little bit of, we have to challenge ourselves to, as an introvert, to extrovert a bit more and get out of this comfort blanket? I'll give you an example of this, and this is from a book called "I'm Sorry I'm Late, I Didn't Want to Come." I think it's a brilliant title.
I think every introvert
out there would recognise that that's what would work for them. And I can't remember the name of the lady who's written it, but basically it's like a year in her life of being an introvert and yet choosing to extrovert a bit more. And one of the things she decided to do was to go on stage and tell a story. And there's I'm not sure fully what it is, but there's clearly a physical side to this. And I think there's a podcast. It's called The Moth, MOTH, like moths to a flame. Been set up for years and years. And in London, they have this club and they have famous people go and talk on stage to hundreds of people in the audience. And she wrote about a part of her story to the person who organises the event. And she thought that they're not going to take me on. I'll be fine. I'll challenge myself, but they won't take me on. Anyway, they did. So then she just had apoplexy about going on stage and talking in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. I think we can relate. So what she did was she actually did her research and found a voice coach, someone who was going to help her. And it sounded a bit like, if you've watched The King's Speech with Colin Firth and him playing King George, I think, who stuttered and being taught how to breathe and how to pace and how to manage the anxiety expectations that would come up. And obviously his speech was well written. He rehearsed it, and this woman did the same thing with this voice coach. She learned lots of breathing exercises. She took herself on long walks in an attempt to de-stress herself. Things like that. It's like, oh, I can relate. And it's just that whole thing of, there is a way as an introvert that we can do this. Not saying we want to do it all the time or overbook ourselves with events that we're going to speak at. No matter how much anyone tells me that it would be good for my business, it wouldn't be good for me.
Yeah.
One of those reasons is I have to conserve my energy. I know what that feels like on the inside. I know when I'm overdoing it with people.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? I don't think it's about introverts being more extroverted, because there's still that consideration of, energy and too much peopling and all of that kind of stuff. And I fully believe in stretching our comfort zones, but there's many extroverts who wouldn't want to speak on stage. I don't think that's a specifically introvert thing, like those sorts of examples, because, both introverts and extroverts can be shy and, not want to be seen in that way. And there's a woman who I follow on, I think on Instagram and YouTube, Vivian Van Edwards. She is, I think her company is The Science of People. So she does a lot of research around human behavior, and she's written a couple of books. One's about body language, all like that kind of stuff is her area of expertise. and she gives talks in huge, huge events. So she was on at what's his name, the School of Greatness guy, Lewis Howes. She was at his huge event conference thing a few months ago, and there was something she put up on one of her platforms about how she prepares for this talk. I mean, like she obviously has her talk and everything rehearsed and all of that kind of stuff, but the day before, because she knows that she's going to give this talk, I think she might have been like the keynote, so the big highlight of the event. She's going to give this talk, lots of people, and then she's going to have to stay around for when people come up and ask questions and talk to her and all of that kind of stuff. She knew she had all of that to, I'm going to use the word, contend with the next day, or later that day. So she spent hours just lying in bed in preparation for doing this thing. And then she was like, and the next day, like tomorrow after the event, I will probably do the same thing. So again, it's like I said before, if it's something that you want to do as an introvert, it's about finding that way to make it work for you. And it's not about trying to extrovert, because we've all been there. We've all tried to be the fake extrovert, haven't we? Let's be honest. And I know certainly in my experience, it just leads to feeling pretty run down and rubbish and taking weeks to get over it.
I think it's such a consideration and it's not something that is spoken about enough. This whole thing of, it's not just shyness, it's not just overwhelm, it's actually a very physical draining of energy thing. And we genuinely, as introverts, I'm not making this up, need that quality time on our own so that we can go out into the world and appear as though we had that more extrovert quality. And in some ways, I hate that it's a label that we have to use, talking of introverts and extroverts, and yet how else can we describe it? So when I'm saying about this woman wanted to live a more extrovert year, but as an introvert, she knows she's an introvert. She knows she prefers her own company, and manages it most of the time very well, except that she was living in London after living, I think she was originally from Texas and had lived in somewhere like Beijing. And she said over there, Beijing way, people are very direct. They will tell you that they think you're overweight and stuff like that. Very direct. They don't mess about. They don't sugarcoat it in any way. And she comes to London and people don't even look you in the eye. And she's like, not everyone's an introvert. This is how the culture is. It's very, very different. And so she started to feel very lonely and depressed. So she knew she needed to challenge herself. I think she'd lost her job as well. So, a lot of stuff had happened. It is managing our energy as introverts is paramount. Without managing my energy, I couldn't record this and sound as upbeat as I am right now. I couldn't I couldn't have people in the house. So I would just be so overwhelmed all the time, anxious. I wonder why I was anxious. No, actually, because you've not had that quality time to recharge. It's so important for someone who's on that much more introverted scale to recharge. I'm not being antisocial. I'm looking after myself. And self-care isn't selfish. It's essential.
Yeah. I think that from what you were just saying about that, we just keep calling her that woman.
No, I'm so sorry. But the book is called I'm Sorry I'm Late. I Didn't Want to Be Here. I haven't got it in front of me to...
but from what you were saying of her story, I think that's brings up another fear that I know I have come across in the past, of that becoming isolated in business, because like the work that I do is mostly through, and has, with my previous business as well, was mostly online. In fact, more so with my previous business because I didn't talk face to face with clients particularly, and I was hiding behind the products. And there was that where, unless you consciously make the effort to go out and see people, you don't see anybody.
Yeah.
And I think I know from people that we've networked with in the past as well. I'm not the only one that's felt that, and even not just with like the whole COVID goings on when everybody was at home and feeling perhaps more isolated, but before that even, I think that was something that, and probably still is, a fear for people. I'm not sure if it's a conscious fear for people, but something that kind of comes upon them. And I know we've talked about it in previous episodes where it becomes less introverting and more hermiting.
I do think this whole speaking up as an introvert also extends into other areas of business. The fear of all eyes on me, the fear of, well, we don't like small talk. We want to have more in-depth conversations. That's much easier for us as introverts. And it's that whole thing of going to networking and having to work the room and appear jolly when suddenly you feel your energy dropping through the floor. And it's like, excuse me, it's like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get through this? And then attempting your 60-second pitch and it not coming out right. And oh, yeah, there are struggles as an introvert. And I used to think, why can't I describe what I do in the way that this person here is? Look how they've got it. And they're all, jolly and at ease with everything. And because they're extroverts, they want to speak. That's what they do. As we said in our last episode, they speak to think. Whereas we want the space to think before we actually speak up. Oh, it's funny, isn't it? Funny, funny, funny.
And I think, I know from my own experience in past networking groups that I've been to and meetings, because of that, because I need the time to think about what I want to say and how I want to present myself and my business. As we're going around the table, everybody's introducing themselves. I'm not listening to what they're saying. I'm worrying about, like, what am I going to say? So, I mean, like, from that point of view, when, networking, you go out and meet people and learn about their business and all that kind of stuff, from that point of view, it did not work for me. I spent so much time worrying about what I was going to say that whoever else was in the room, I have no idea.
Yeah, my body will tell me when when it's done peopling, because I'll do a ruddy great yawn in someone's face. Like, it's not you. It's really not you. It's me. I'm not bored. My body's just telling me that my energy is drained. I've started to talk about the difference in cars, like with a petrol or diesel car, you literally can pull up, refuel, and off you go. But with an electric car, you have to park them quietly. And they're very quiet cars. And you have to plug them in. And they need quite a long time to charge up again. That's us. That's what we need. I'm not a petrol diesel car. I'm definitely an electric car. Quiet, could still do things at speed, but don't want to make a noise about them. I think the other thing about introverting is this whole, I just don't want to do a lot of social media. I put a lot of posts out there, which I hope people find interesting to read, but I don't necessarily want to spend my time going through other people's posts, because it's like they're all talking at me, and it just gets to a point where I'm like, I genuinely have had enough now. I can leave my phone to one side and not worry about it. Whereas other people I know are like, what? What? Why would you do that? Like, they've got their phone in their hand all the time. People who walk down the road talking to what appears to be no one, but they're plugged into their phone. And it's like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. Because I like, if I'm going for a walk, I will want to soak up the walk, what's going on around me
Mm,
with nature,
yeah.
wherever I'm going.
There's
Uh,
a guy who I have talked about before on a previous episode with the little dog Bella, who comes to see us at the allotment. And the guy has always got headphones on. I'm guessing a podcast or music or something. I don't know what exactly he's listening to. But I'm like, what? What? There's all this, the birds are singing, the dog's doing whatever the dog's doing. There's people to say hello to. You don't have to stop and have an in-depth chat, but you can say hello as you walk past. It's like, why would you drag like that? For me, I'm like, I don't get that.
mm,
And like, if I'm going for a walk, I very rarely take my phone with me. I do now that there's pregnant sheep on the fields, because there have been times when I've had to call the farmer because there's been sheep in distress. But most of the time, like, it's in my pocket unless it's required. Um,
I just carry mine to take photographs. I don't I don't carry it to use it. Someone calls me, I'm like, oh, oh no. And then my kids will be like, Mum, I've been trying to get hold of you. It's like, oh, have you? Oh, I'm so sorry. What is the point of you carrying your phone? I don't know. As a phone, I don't know. As a camera, love it.
mm. And like, but what you were saying about not wanting to be on social media, and so my whole thing is like, marketing and branding as a way for introverts to market their businesses without flogging themselves on social media. Fully believe in all of the stuff that I advise and share with clients. And also this year, like, I got pulled back into social media. Like, I believe I got pulled back into the social media hype, and then followed 3 months of posting every day on Instagram and, interacting and all of that kind of stuff. And 3 months was my limit. And then I hit rock bottom and I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Can I ask
Um,
what pulled you back in? What was that? Why did you think that you had to go back onto social media regularly?
there was a course that I did, and the person leading the course, who, was the tutor type person, the coach, that was their medium. Like, they use social media really well. They are a switch the camera on and talk to it kind of person. And I'm not really sure. It was just kind of like the way this course was presented and the way this person spoke and all of that kind of stuff. Kind of thought, oh, yeah, I'll give that a go. Yeah, it didn't work for me. So then, social media burnout and all of that kind of stuff. So I just thought, right, I just need to detox from this. Took all sorts of stuff off my phone, and then I'm like, we hosted a networking meeting, didn't we? And I'm like, I have no idea who's coming because I took everything off my phone. So we like, and that I find tricky, like,
Yeah.
marrying that personal need for the detox and the stepping away from all of that. And also, in some situations, I need to access some stuff on my phone. But I know that if I have like the Instagram app or the Facebook app or whatever on my phone, I will easily get drawn back in because,
Mm.
like, we pick up our phones and we scroll, don't we, without even thinking about it. So there was the whole thing of like, I just need to go cold turkey, just like not have it there and then I can't use it. And also, talking about you don't want to be flicking through people's posts, I got to this point and it was just such a huge sinking feeling, like physically sinking feeling within my body. I was doing before I came off social media this recent time, and I was going through Instagram, just seeing, because you have to interact with people, you have to be social because it's social media, and the algorithm and all of that. So I was just scrolling through one day, and it's just like, it's just a load of faces selling to me, and it's just like, oh, I don't want to be part of this. And it wasn't just like I don't want to see this. It's like I don't want to add to this. And from that point of view, it was kind of, I I really need to step away from this, and also this is not working for me. If I, as a user, am just bored by all the stuff that's on there, all these faces that are trying to tell me to pay them loads of money, then I'm sure I'm not the only one in that. Is just fatigued by consuming social media,
Yeah, I
not
mean
just posting.
it's a very brain numbing way of actually not interacting. We
Mm,
think we're interacting, but we're not interacting really. There's so much goes on social media that people would not say to someone if they were face to face. I hate that part of it.
mm,
Um, so much. And there's just this like, because it's so quick on social media, that there's such a lot, I'm going to call them flippant comments get said. And it's like, if you were actually sat down having an in-depth conversation, would you actually say that?
mm.
And I'm just like, don't know that. But I mean, there is good stuff on social media. There's no doubt about that. But I think it gets eclipsed by, I'm going to say, shittiness that goes on.
Yeah.
It's awful.
And I think you're right. I agree. There is some really good stuff on social media. I mean, like, there's a lot, I don't follow the news, but there's a lot of stuff that I am aware of because I've seen it on social media. And there's a lot of, like the activism and all of that on social media, which is very important for world events and all of that kind of stuff. And also, there's very good stuff, as in, people creating art through what they do on social media. I'm thinking especially with Instagram, like some people's photography is amazing, and some of the messages they share and all of that kind of stuff. I think what's a shame is that this whole social media marketing message that we've got is like, you just got to create a post every day. You just got to post every day, and that, I think, brings down the, I would say the word caliber, the caliber of the content on social media. There's so much dross on there now because people think that they need to post in order to get attention. It's like, it's the quality of the content and the quality of the stuff that you're sharing should, I know it doesn't always work with like the way the algorithm works, should be more important than how often you post.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that as well. But then again, is that an introvert thing that we want
Mm,
more deep, meaningful posts rather than, the throwaway stuff that comes up every 5 minutes, really?
mm,
Because there are some people who put a lot of content out there, but it's meaningless. But I think that's partly the way our brains work. We
mm,
don't want the light, fluffy stuff. We want something that's got a bit more meat on the bone,
yeah.
is what I'm going to say. Because I can get drawn into watching all sorts of dance reels because I don't dance, I can't do it. So I'm always amazed at how bodies can be moved. I can't do that for myself. And I am grateful to people who put all sorts of stuff out there about physical movement for the body. There's one particular guy, it's all Tai Chi moves, and there's so much that you can do. But then suddenly I find myself going, yeah, but what do I need from all of this? It's like, oh my God, I'm just scrolling here, looking at this guy moving his body when I'm not actually doing this. So then what's the point of that? So I'm like, no, just stop watching unless you're looking for something specific that you're going to get into, deep and meaningful.
Mm,
Why do that? Why keep scrolling? Because once you start, at least 20 to 30 minutes goes by,
mm,
and it's like, well, what else could I have done with that time that would have been actually more beneficial for my brain, more beneficial for me? Uh,
mm.
yeah, and used up less energy because I have to recharge my phone more often if I keep doing that.
And that, actually, what you just said kind of brings up another fear, which I know I've had in the past, and I know a lot of other people have had. It's not necessarily an introvert fear, but the whole thing in business. So this guy who's, sharing his Tai Chi moves and all of that kind of stuff. So there's the whole fear of like giving away the farm. Whereas, like, if you give away all these free tips on social media, why would anybody pay to work with you? But I mean, like, you've just proved the point. There's such an integration gap between consuming, like, nobody, well, I'm going to say, especially in the well connected world, as in, got access to internet and all of that kind of stuff, nobody is lacking information. If you want to know how to do something, you can find how to do it. You do, in that case, you do not need to work with a coach, you do not need to work with a tutor, you like none of that kind of stuff. But it's the integration, the actual doing it, putting it into practice. It's such a huge gap.
Yeah, because there's no accountability. I used to hate
Mm,
the word accountability, but actually, it's that whole cheerleading someone. We do it with each other. We
Mm.
know when, if one person's feeling down because XYZ, they hoped would happen and it hasn't, we can actually talk it through. Whereas when you're just scrolling on wherever you are, I don't know, there's so many platforms these days,
Mm.
you haven't got that. So unless you are so, I'm not even sure it's motivation, you're so structured and systematic. If you've never done something before, so let's look at running. Say I wanted to start running. I could find, I know it's laughable, feel free. You will find so many hundreds and hundreds of people that will tell you how to do that.
Mm.
But will you do it without someone personally who has looked you over, worked out what it is about your body that isn't working, and how to coach you
Mm.
into getting from where you are to where you want to be? It doesn't do that. That's
Mm.
not out there. And you do have to pay for that.
Mm. And I
So,
think from the business point of view, you can give away all the free tips that you want because people are still going to pay you to work with you.
yeah, because we are people, we do need to interact with other people. It
Mm.
is whether that's on Zoom or in real life out there. That thing that happens outside my four walls, life. We do need to interact. It is absolutely essential. And I love that word you use, that integration of what you see to which we can all have great ideas and
Mm.
create, but actually going from that to actually putting it into practice, that's something else entirely. And that's what you pay for with any form of coaching, counseling, therapy, whatever it is, business, branding, whatever. You get that attention. It's like you can read a book, but will you follow what the book recommends? At some point you need to have that interaction with someone for them to look at you and stand outside of you,
Mm.
see you, listen to you, and then work with you. And there's more than enough people who require that, and more than enough styles of coaching, therapy, etc. out there that you could choose from. You
Mm.
don't have to do it all on social media. You just don't. Gosh. Yeah. It's a bit like I love watching yoga with Adrian. And Adrian's been around for ages, showing us all how
Mm.
to stretch and relax and blah, blah, blah. And she can, she just goes through the movements. She's so fluid, etc., etc. And yet I watch her and I'm like, well, I'm not like you. My body doesn't move like yours. I know I could get there, but how do I go from watching you and your very lithe, stretchy body when mine feels so tight and like it's not had a good stretch in years to being like you? Can't do that just by watching social media stuff. Got to do
Mm.
something else. Because that person can watch you and go, no, that shoulder's higher than that one. Put your hand here, not here, move your leg, whatever it is required. Yeah, we do need to work in groups or one-to-one or whatever, however that works. And you can get so far with social media, but you won't get to where you really want to be with it. And I think that can sometimes be a fear with an introvert, is actually asking for help.
Yeah.
If we are so introverted that we actually don't even know what is truly going on,
Mm.
then speak to someone who does know. As an introvert myself, and coaching, I love it because one-to-one really works for me because I can go deep and meaningful. And you're
Mm.
the same. That's what
Yeah.
you love. And we will sit back and listen in a way that even an introvert will open up, because the space is a safe one to do it in.
Mm. And I think a huge strength of introverts is like we're so self reliant, which can, in so many cases, be so beneficial to us. And then also in other cases, can be we become our own worst enemy in a way. And that kind, like you were just saying, knowing when to ask for help can really unstick us.
Yeah. I think,
When we're
yeah.
really stuck, knowing that it's okay to ask for help would really help us.
Yeah, I would say that as an introvert, I used to, because I was so into my inner world, that I somehow got into the habit of I had to work it out for myself.
Mm.
It's like, yeah, and I didn't even recognize it as a fear for a long, long time because language has changed over the years and we can be more open about this. And people go, yeah, yes, this is good to hear. Whereas years ago, it was almost taken as a sign of weakness that this
Yeah.
had to happen. And especially coming from the medical world, where if it wasn't medically approved a million times over, it wasn't worth knowing about, which isn't true. There's so much that's gone out, goes on out there that's very much energetic based. And my work is very energy based. I just don't use a full on energy language. I
Mm.
use a more medical language to explain things, but I can't ignore the energy of a situation or the person. I know if someone we're just not going to work together, it's not going to happen because we haven't got the connection. So, but you will have a connection with someone else, so you can go and chat with them. I think one of the things as an introvert as well is that fear of, well, how much time is that person going to spend with me if I actually ask them about what they do? Well, how much time do you need? And sometimes an introvert thinks that they want to spend a limited amount of time because they're going to get overwhelmed energy wise. And then suddenly the floodgates open because they've never opened up to anyone. And then they need all the time in the world. And then as the coach, I've got to rein it back in because I could get overwhelmed with
Mm.
everything that they then realize they've been attempting to work out on their own. Yeah. Oh, we're tricky things, aren't we? Whether we're introvert or extrovert, there's a lot of stuff goes on.
Yeah.
I'm sure in business, you'll have, dear listener, you'll have your own fears, but you may not have recognized them as fears. So just check in with your introvert self and what do your fears look like? So it might not be the same as ours, but they'll be there because that's how we're made. We're made to survive, and fears are important
Mm.
as far as our brains are concerned.
Mm. And I think on that, like you might not recognize your fears. I think what I've learned is to recognize my fear response. And then now when I see that happening, so my fear response is I don't have enough information. I need to go looking for information, which, sometimes you might need an extra little nugget of information about something. But on the whole, that's not what's required. What's required is to do the thing that I'm avoiding doing. So I think if you can find, discover, acknowledge, recognize what that response is for you, then you can more easily recognize your fears, I think. And I think this whole thing about fear has been built up to be this awful thing that we shouldn't look at, and we shouldn't admit to being scared of things. And like, I don't know anybody in the circles that I'm in, sort of thing, which is mostly women solopreneurs in business working on their own in their business. I don't know anybody who isn't scared of being the person of responsibility, asking for money, whatever it is. I don't know anybody who isn't scared when they're running their business. It's okay. It's part of, like we were talking earlier, about stretching your comfort zone and becoming a version of yourself that you haven't been before. It's okay. So I think fear is one of those true, like, introvert style, one of those juicy topics that just want to get in there and explore those things. So I don't think fear should be feared.
Yeah, and I like the acronym for fear: false evidence appearing real. You
Mm.
can really spiral out of control with fear. Just, a little spark, and suddenly there's a raging fire.
Mm.
And we can really talk ourselves out of doing stuff that is essential, even. But yeah, recognizing your own fear response, that's something that we're not taught to do because, like you've said, you don't talk about fear.
Mm.
You just, you just let it all fester. No, that's not a good idea. It really isn't. So yeah, so if you think about fear as false evidence appearing real, unless you're about to fall off a cliff or, you're walking in front of a car or something like that, then when it comes to your business and making money, what are the fears that are holding you back that appear so real? You might not even be able to put words to them, but you'll get a sensation in your body. You'll procrastinate, all that sort of thing. Yeah, fear it's essential. It's built in for survival, and it can stop us from really being the biggest, best version of ourselves we could possibly be.
I think it's like a phrase that you use a lot is it's information.
Yeah, it is information. What is that fear telling you, and where is it stopping you? What are you afraid of? That's another way. Instead of thinking it as fear, what am I afraid of in this moment? If I actually go on Instagram every single day, every 5 minutes, what would my fear be around that? And mine would be being overwhelmed, getting so tired that I become ill. Okay, so how do I dial back from that? Well, I don't need to be on there every 5 minutes. I could be on there every 5 hours instead, or every 5 days. Make it work for you. Look at what fear is saying to you, and then in a calm and kind way, what would work for you? Oh yes, and I found the name of the lady who's written "Sorry I'm late, I didn't want to come." Her name is Jessica Pan, and the strapline for this book is "An Introvert's Year of Living Dangerously." Oh my word. Yeah, I'm only part way through it, so I'm not sure what she was doing next. I forget. But that was the going to speak. She's very funny. It's not just I did this and then that happened. No, she really does look at what is holding her back in a very, very funny way. I highly recommend it to any introvert who's thinking of challenging themselves over a year or any time.
Makes me think of gosh, some years ago now. I went through a phase for a few years. At the beginning of each year, I'd choose a word for the year that would kind of be my inspiration and my compass for the year ahead. And one year, I think it was 2018, my word was adventure. So in a similar sort of way, was all not necessarily like I wasn't trekking through the Congo or anything like that, but that kind of doing new things, like challenging myself to do new things. And I can't remember most of the stuff I did that year, but I know I did a horse riding lesson. It's the only thing that sticks out in my mind for that whole year. So that must have been quite an achievement for me. But yeah, it's that, okay, I've kind of felt like I was in a rut sort of thing, and, that maybe I was hiding from the world or whatever. And it's like, okay, let's see what I am capable of. And I do appreciate that year and whatever else I did during that year that I cannot remember. There was a lot of stuff. I remember I had a poster of a map of the UK, and like each time I did something, I put a little pin in like where I'd done something. I know I car camped at Stonehenge one night. So all random stuff. And I came out of that year with a sense of, oh, well, if I can do that, what else can I do? Oh, I am capable of doing things that I don't necessarily do on a daily basis.
Yeah, we do have to challenge ourselves. It is too easy to stay static. Yeah, and I saying that word is like, you're not a caravan. You're not a static caravan. Get your wheels on. You can get out there. And saying things like that to myself and challenging myself with things that would make me smile or even laugh out loud. And it's like, yeah, find the fun in what you're looking towards doing. From fear to fun, I think.
I kind of feel that "You're Not a Caravan" is the soundbite from this episode.
You're not a static caravan.
You're not a caravan, people. You have been told.
Are we ending on that one? Are we done?
I think that's a good place. I think that's a good ending to an episode.
Just tell everyone where they can find you, Sami Blackford.
So you can find me at Sami, Sami, rainbow.co.uk. That's my website. And as I say, brand and marketing for introverted women who do not want to flog themselves on social media. Come and have a chat. Or, message me. Don't
Don't chat. Yeah.
Don't chat.
It needs time to prepare herself, so she can't just chat. But messaging is chatting, isn't
It
it?
is, yes.
It is chatting. That's the thing. And you do. I still now have to manage how much chatting I'm doing with messaging. Oh, it's crazy. We are crazy people. And I'm Denise Oliver. My business name is Diva Empowerment. You can find my website and Facebook page under those names. And I work with introverted women who've experienced grief and loss and require support with moving forward after grief and loss, or with grief and loss even. So yes, so that's us two. We're done.
Mm-hmm. And all details are in the description, as
Oh,
ever.
marvellous. I'm glad you did that bit. Oh, I'm so glad you do that bit. Yes, anything else?
I think we're done.
I think we're done.